I'm Madison, and I'm celebrating my 30th birthday this year. After finishing college, I landed a position at a prominent company known to virtually everyone. This company offered attractive starting salaries, but the compensation came with its demands. I frequently traveled for work and often found myself working overtime and during holidays. It was challenging, but I found the role fulfilling. By the time I was 30, I had climbed the ranks to become the head of my chief financial officer, an achievement not commonly seen among women in my field. 4 years ago, I married Mason, who I met through a mutual friend. Initially, I was not keen on dating, but my friend, concerned about my well-being, introduced us. I had never planned on marrying, content with the idea of remaining single. Mason, however, was clear about his intentions from the start. He wanted to marry soon and was eager to start a family, arguing that raising children would be tougher as we aged. I was hesitant about marriage, especially so soon after my promotion. Whenever Mason mentioned marriage, I would softly decline, suggesting we needed more time to understand each other and reminding him that marriage would extend beyond just the two of us. Despite my reservations, Mason proposed we marry after 3 years of dating, believing it would give us enough time to know each other thoroughly. Although I doubted our relationship would last that long, it did, and we eventually married. Throughout our relationship, Mason proved to be faithful and sincere. He was diligent at work, but his large ego occasionally caused tension. Whenever he received criticism at work, he would come home upset, insisting that he had done his best and shouldn't be micromanaged. It was evident that he struggled with criticism, despite it often being warranted for his mistakes. When Mason suggested we dine with both families to get acquainted, he chose an upscale restaurant that charged over $300 per person and proposed I cover half the cost. Finding it too pricey, I recommended a more affordable venue, but he was adamant, fearing a cheaper choice would make him appear stingy. As he couldn't afford the whole bill on his salary, only enough for 5 people, he asked me to pay for the remaining 5, pushing my share over half. We were to be 8 at the dinner, 4 from each family. Mason, though unable to pay for his own family, boldly announced at the dinner that he would handle the bill, leaving everyone pleased. I reluctantly agreed to let him lead, despite my reservations. Looking back, I regret not reconsidering my decision to marry him sooner. After marriage, Mason's true colors showed. He began speaking to me condescendingly, and although he promised to help with chores before we married, he soon declared them inappropriate for a man, suggesting they were solely a woman's responsibility. Despite his lack of assistance at home, what truly upset me was his financial support to his parents, who, despite being farm manager, always seemed financially unstable. This entire situation showcased a side of Mason I hadn't seen before, filled with arrogance and an unyielding attitude. As Mason's parents approached their 60s, farming grew more challenging for them. They often reached out to Mason requesting financial support. Initially, I understood the necessity due to their hardships. However, within just 7 months of our marriage, Mason began to transfer his entire salary to his parents, leaving none for our household expenses. When I expressed my concerns about managing all living expenses alone, Mason's response shocked me. He said, "How can you say such a thing when my family is struggling? They are your family too. Besides, you earn more than I do, so you should manage just fine." Over the phone, Mason reassured his parents. "Don't worry, I'm covering everything with my salary. I won't let her interfere." It seemed as though he was contributing only a part of his salary, but in reality, he was giving away every penny. Soon, he had no personal funds left and began asking me for money. "Can you give me about $300? He'd ask. "I won't even be able to afford lunch at this rate." I realized that this situation was unsustainable and proposed setting a monthly limit on the amount we could send to his parents. I also asked him to manage his personal expenses independently. Mason would agree each time but continued to send his entire salary to his parents, which I found intolerable. One day, due to work, I had to travel for about 4 weeks. Before leaving, Mason fretfully asked, "What will I eat? Who will do my laundry?" Despite knowing my job required frequent travel, his dependency frustrated me. I bluntly told him, Figure it out yourself. You're a grown man. If you can't manage, maybe go stay at your parents' house while I'm away." Reluctantly, Mason agreed. When I returned home 3 weeks later, unexpectedly, I found Mason's sister Addison at our house. We hadn't seen her since our wedding. As I entered, puzzled by her presence, Addison greeted me warmly. "Hi, Madison. It's been a while." "Oh, that's right." Her words trailed off, suggesting there was more to her unexpected visit. During a heated discussion, Mason coldly declared, "This money is too good for you, so I'm giving it to Addison. You'd only waste it. You can just work and save up again. If you want to argue about this, we can get divorced." Seizing the moment, an idea sparked in my mind, and I promptly responded, "All right, let's get a divorce. I'll draft the papers and send them to you. I'll come to collect my things soon. Until the divorce is finalized, I'll stay at a hotel. Bye for now." With that, I quickly grabbed my luggage from the business trip and left the house swiftly. Mason was stunned by my decisive action. Soon after, he bombarded me with texts, some saying, "You can still come back if you apologize now," and Addison says she'll forgive you for today as long as you give her the money. Stop being stubborn and come back. I ignored all his messages, appalled by his audacity. The following day, I visited City Hall and mailed the signed divorce papers. Mason continued to send texts, questioning if I was sure about this and reminding me he was going to submit the papers. I simply replied, "Please submit them as soon as possible," and ignored all other communications. The divorce was finalized more quickly than anticipated. A week later, timed with when Mason was at work, I moved my belongings to my new residence. Upon filing for divorce, Mason had spitefully said, "I feel great about divorcing an ugly woman like you. We are strangers now, but make sure you divide our property properly." I didn't take much of the furniture and appliances, but I did deposit half of the modest savings we had accumulated during our marriage into his account. That night, Mason and then Addison started calling repeatedly. At first, I ignored the calls, but eventually, I answered. Mason immediately complained, "What's this about property division? There's only $800 in this account." I calmly replied, knowing this was exactly what I had anticipated. "See, I did split everything fairly." The calmness in my voice contrasted sharply with the turmoil of our ending, marking a new chapter of independence for me. I divided our joint property, leaving behind half of our shared savings, $950 from the original $1,700 in our account. Additionally, all the furniture and appliances acquired after our marriage stayed with you, ensuring a fair division of our assets. Despite this equitable split, Mason contested, mistakenly believing he was entitled to a more substantial share based on presumed savings and inheritance claims. Mason was under the impression that I had $1 million stashed away, and therefore he should receive $700,000, along with half of an inheritance from my grandfather. His assumptions led to a confrontation where he accused me of hiding assets and threatened legal action. Calmly, I explained that both my savings and the inheritance were mine from before we were married and did not fall under marital assets. Despite my efforts at clarity, Mason suggested abandoning the divorce and reconciling. I firmly reiterated the finality of our divorce and the reality that if he chose to continue living in our marital home, the $2,000 monthly rent was his responsibility, a cost he was unaware of, as he had never contributed financially during our marriage. His financial unpreparedness forced him to move back with his parents and sell the furniture and appliances I left behind. Throughout this ordeal, I remained focused on my work and life post-divorce. Mason's occasional pleas to reconcile, which I've largely ignored, only affirm my decision. Moving forward, I'm considering blocking him entirely to prevent further disruptions.